Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Monday Night Magic with your favorite Epigenetic Geeks, my amazing friend Ken Close, and myself, Lori Falk. We are thrilled to be here with you this evening to talk about a very interesting topic, the body electric. Wow. I Googled body electric earlier today because I wanted a graphic to throw up on social media. And what did I find? There's actually a YouTube video out there called The Body Electric. There's a book out there called The Body Electric. And the one thing that I thought was really interesting is we often talk about the future of medicine as frequencies. Well, listen to this quote that I stumbled upon today. The understanding of the body electric has the potential to revolutionize medicine. In the future, medical treatments will be based on the prescription of appropriate frequencies, aka electroceuticals, rather than pharmaceuticals. So, yet just a different spin on the importance of frequency medicine and the future upon which we are embarking. What do you think, Ken?
I'll tell you what. So you hit the nail right on the head, because everything is electric. I mean, it's interesting. My as most of you know, or a lot of you know, my background is in electronics engineering, and as we started to begin our study, we went right down to the electron. So in other words, we began at the beginning, right? Which is where you should. And it was, there's lots of different theories where creation came from. But when we start to study electronics, everything is an equation. Everything. And our last month's talk was about an equation. Remember, we talked about what's on the left of the equal sign and on the right, the balance. Everything is an equation. And if you can prove something mathematically, you can create it electronically, right? So our awesome little gift here, Healy, has been multiple technologies proven mathematically, but then it took another mind, a mastermind, to combine that into the ability to bridge the quantum field and the biological and physical fields of matter, right? But the very basics of everything is electricity. It's electrical. The molecule itself, it uses an energy field to hold itself together, right? The orbiting of the planets, it uses a field. That field is magnetic. So there's an attraction. And any moving magnetic wave that encounters a conductive surface, whether it be your body or some antenna or metallic, any moving magnetic wave that encounters a conductive surface implants its information into that solid, into that matter. And that information is then decoded by the material form. So it creates an electrical charge. It's kind of, I don't know if you guys all know what the pineal gland is, yes? Our third eye, right? It is a amazing little device that uses electrical charge and uses crystals, piezoelectric effect within crystals. And every time that it receives a magnetic wave, it decodes that into information, right? Into our information field. And then anytime that you compress that pineal gland, and by the way, there's breathing exercises, very distinct body movement exercises that can energize and activate the pineal gland. And when you do that, it sends out a signal, a magnetic wave, and that can be read. So the pineal gland has been said to be part of this transducing system between humans, right? And we're going to be talking about instincts tonight. And if we're going to be talking about instincts, we can't leave out intuition. Right? They're married. So we're going to talk about both of them, and the pineal gland and these magnetic phenomenon that I'm talking about is part of the equation of this two-way communication and this electric body. So how about that, Lori?
This is just so very vitally important because everything is energy.
Yep.
Everything has an electrical charge. We're sending all these frequencies out into the universe. And what are we attracting back? More of the same. So it's vitally important. We say, you guys who are here all the time hear me say this over and over and over again, but 90 to 98% of the time, we are reacting based upon subconscious programs. So we're going to talk tonight about yet another way to actually help you stay conscious. Stay conscious, because if you're falling back into those reactive patterns based on goodness knows, probably things carried over from a past life, or your parents, grandparents, worse yet, ancestors who lived in, eras gone by, that those beliefs don't serve us in this present moment. And to carry that forward and to be reacting based upon those old programs versus staying conscious, it's just so inefficient. And it's attracting into our lives things that are not what we're wanting. And then we wake up and we go, well, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted my life to look like. And yet, if you don't like what's going on out here, you have to look in here. And we are so blessed to have this beautiful little device, but not just this beautiful little device, but the coaching module, because we created an intention and we put it into this coaching module. And now we can find all the stuff that's in the way between point A, where we are, and point B, where we want to be. So it literally goes in and finds everything that's in the way. And then, as we know, it vibrationally clears it. It shakes it up. It shakes it loose. And after having coached for over 20 years, that's 2+ decades, I can tell you, identifying something is only half of it. And most of us as human beings cling to those old beliefs. Why? Because they're our comfort zone. They're like a comfortable old shoe. And nobody wants to get rid of those comfortable old shoes, even though the new Manolos are sitting in the closet. Just kidding. Not that many of us have those. Those are a little pricey. But you get the drift of what I'm saying. So it's just, there are a lot of frequency devices on the market. Ken and I were talking about this earlier, but nobody comes close to having what we have with that coaching module.
Part of, and what, to Lori's point, letting go of something, part of our conversation today, and what I want to kind of go over today, letting go of something requires some effort. And as we bring this back to the electric body and instincts as well as intuition, as we bring this back, let's just say, well, what's the difference between instinct and intuition? And they're really similar, but there's some basic differences. And instinct is various and distinct to a species, right? It is a species-wide influence. Instincts are to mainly, bottom line, keep us alive, right? That's it. It's to keep us as an organism in whole, as an organism alive, but also, as a species, to keep the species propagating and going on. Instincts kind of drive that ship, but also the individual me and the individual you. Instincts are what keeps you alive, and that's kind of the thing. And those instincts they're kind of innate patterns, right? That we all kind of exhibit similar patterns. For instance, a loud noise, right? If you hear a loud noise, there's a pretty common pattern to get some kind of a startle, right? Or like if you are falling, there's some innate pattern. These instincts kick in. And these are natural, by the way. There's only a couple of natural fears within humans. Anybody know what they are? If you do, type them in the chat there. There's two natural innate fears. Everything else, like if you're afraid of bugs or you're afraid of, the dark or whatever, there's really only two innate fears that we're born with as a species. And you can test this. Well, actually, I don't recommend testing this, but when you public speaking, yeah, it's funny because most people delivering a eulogy at a funeral, I've heard they would rather be in the casket than giving the speech, right? But the point is there's two natural fears. One is the fear of falling, right? The fear of falling. And number two is the fear of loud noises. Why? Those are two, go way back in time. In the loud noises, a predator sneaking up on you, or sometimes a loud noise would get our attention. But the way that we can test this now, just go back to your experience. Don't actually go and do this. But what happens if a baby hears a loud noise, right? A baby that hears a loud noise has a response. Now, you can talk to the baby. You can talk to this beautiful little infant. You can insult them all day long. You can put them in front of a crowd of people and they'll just do the same thing. Like, public speaking, they're not afraid of that. Public goo-goo gaggling, they're not afraid of that, right? But yell at them, make a loud noise, and they have a startle, okay? The fear of falling. Another thing, if the child, is falling, they have this innate response. So those are the only real two fears that we are born with. Everything else, by the way, sorry to say, folks, we're just making stuff up. We're not, that's just experience. So when it comes to instincts, those are natural instincts, right? They're survival mechanisms. But when we cross over to intuition, now intuition is a learned, cultivated, expanded interface with some of our, and they are still part of our sympathetic, parasympathetic system. This instincts and intuition, because when we are triggered, our senses take in some content. Let's just look at the flow chart for a second. Our senses take in some content. We see something, we hear something, we smell something. What happens when you guys smell smoke? If you're asleep, it'll wake you up, right? It's a natural, but that's a learned response. You didn't know that when you were born. It was something learned over time. And somehow you associate the smell of smoke with maybe fire, right? Or heat. Maybe you've burned yourself on a fireplace or something like that. And so that built in a particular learned response. So now you have an instinctive learned response, but you also have an intuitive learned response. So you intuitively know when you start feeling heat or you smell smoke, it's some danger. Okay. So instinct is something that we can grow, something that we can, intuition, is something we can grow, something we can learn, we can expand. And sadly, a lot of intuition has been shamed out of humans. Take our children, our young people, super connected, right? In theta state most of the time, wide open to the divine, wide open to quantum entanglement and understanding, wide open to the cellular interface, the language of these bodies and the cosmos and the design and the divine. They're wide open. And have you ever, maybe you remember as a young person, did you have an imaginary friend? Or do you see any children just staring at something and waving and having a interaction with something that you can't see, right? And then what happens? What's that? What are you doing? Oh, you see that right there? And you're going, I don't see anything. That's silly. That's ridiculous, right? And the shame, they respect the person probably giving them this context. And so they're like, well, maybe that's not true. And maybe I'm crazy, or maybe I need to dim that down. And so instincts wind up getting dimmed down, pushed aside. Now, this is mostly in the US, by the way. Not so true in other countries. Not so true. There are other countries who cultivate the spiritual connection, right, from birth all the way through their lives, and they know there's an innate understanding, and their intuition is wide open, full on, turned on. Now, doesn't mean that we can't get it back. But what is shame? Shame is a trauma. Shame is a very huge limiting factor. And it gets built into our biology. It becomes an electrical signal within our bodies. And when we start to feel a match, some other signal out there that's provoking this internal memory, we have a bodily response, right? No different than, as was mentioned, standing up and public speaking. What happens when you get up there in front of people and start speaking? There's a body response, isn't there? The body starts to have some response. Maybe you have butterflies in your stomach. Maybe you get flushed. Maybe you have, maybe you pass out. It can be pretty severe. But it's the body's taking over, even though your mind is saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Right? You're okay. You're okay. You're breathing, and suddenly your body starts having this shaking or twitching, or your mouth goes dry, or you're sweating profusely, right? Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about, or know somebody like that. So the point is that there is information in these bodies, and it can tune in. The tuning fork, or the tuning method, is energy. It's frequency, and we can feel that. You feel someone's energy far before you ever hear their voice or speak to them, right? But someone approaches you, you can feel them, and you don't have to be intuitive. This is part of instinctive characteristics. That's our survival. They both operate in very similar ways. They both utilize information field transmission, which is one, entanglement. Once you've experienced something, you can't unexperience it. And two is that magnetic wave frequency that we were talking about. These things are very real, unseen, but very real patterns. And they are patterns. We can train our intuition to get better. And we call our intuitions clairs, like it's a gift. The gift of being able to see things that others don't, seeing beyond these visual spectrums, is clairvoyance, visual effect, clairvoyance. There is a clairaudience, which is you hear things. Anybody ever just kind of hear the voices of the spirit, right? The signals of the angels, right? The music, the sound, the earth's music, plants, right? That's clairaudience. Claircognizance. Claircognizance is just a knowing. Just, I don't know how I know it, but I know it. Anybody ever heard somebody say that? I don't know how I know that. I just know it. And clairsentience, where we sense the feeling of something. You get a feeling, like I got a gut feeling. You ever heard of that? I got a gut feeling. And when somebody says, I've got a gut feeling, they say that because the body has a physical, tangible response, right? This is a combination. This is intuition, but it's also a combination of instinct. And the body is like Lori was talking about, is electrical. And so it will have some kind of an innate response, and you'll feel it. And one of the practices that I advocate for often when we're trying to move from, say, the contemporary or being stuck in some habit or behavior, is starting to pay attention to the body sensations. Just start paying attention to the body, not the mind, not your thoughts, because that is another task. We'll talk about that another time. But just paying attention to the body, because the body is giving us content 24/7 all the time. It's just that we tend to ignore it because it's been something that maybe has been happening for a long period of time, and we just think, well, that's just me, right? But it is you, but it's more than just you. Well, I'm going to ask you the question about that in just a second. When I'm going to talk about I want you to define that for yourself. Who is me or who is I? But we feel these things in our body. So if we start listening to these things, or I should say being aware of these things, this is our intuition speaking to us. This is also, like I said, a gut feeling. This is waves of magnetic energy coming to you from anywhere in the universe. It doesn't have to be like right next to you. It can be a wave of information from across the planet. How do I know? Have you guys ever thought of somebody and they called you? That's wave of information that came to you from somewhere else in the world, right? Because you're thinking of them, and we let's give ourselves permission to understand that we created that. I thought of that person and they called me. Not coincidence, not just so happen. I want you to give yourself permission to say that thought stimulated that person, aware of it or not. They don't have to be aware of it. They don't have to be aware of it. They were just acting upon what they think was a natural impulse. However, stimulated by your energy. Okay, so this is the way these magnetic signals interface with these, what I like to call the human antenna. The wave comes across this body, creates an electrical impulse, and the body decodes it and gives you a sensation. Gives you a sensation. That's how Healy works, right? When you connect the coil to the Healy hardware, it's a magnetic wave that's going out, and it is coming across antennas. If you're in a room of 100 people, they're all an antenna. Everybody, every conductive entity is an antenna. It doesn't matter if it's a chain link fence or a human body or a squirrel. It's all conductive, and magnetic waves will induce information in the form of current flow, aka electricity, in those agencies, in those entities. So that's how the transference of content like that works, and how our body interfaces with that. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. And Ken, you brought up angels. You can't bring angels into the conversation with me around and not have that conversation get expanded. I sometimes pre-Healy was referred to as the angel lady. Some of my friends still call me Angel Lori. So angel communication classes, angelic message portraits, it's just been a huge, huge part of who I've been professionally over the last several decades, along with my coaching, until Healy came along, and then I became the coaching queen of Healy. But all of that said, it's so important that we want to control some of these instincts, harness them a little bit, and our intuition too. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to ask your angels for help. They're around you all the time. But what most people don't understand is that they cannot intercede on your behalf unless you ask. Unless it's a life or death situation and it's not your time to go, and then they can stop it. And I've actually had 2 experiences where I like literally almost died, and it got interceded. One was when I was in my late 20s. I was in New York City hailing a cab, and I got hit in the neck by a truck. Woke up. I didn't even know I got hit right away. I don't remember getting hit, but I woke up under the truck and the wheels were this close to going right over me. When I got out from under the truck, I remember asking where the guy was that went and pounded on the window. He hopped up on the sidebar of the truck and pounded on the window to get the driver's attention, to get him to stop. Apparently, I was the only person who had seen that. So I didn't know back then. I was in the fashion industry, for heaven's sakes. I didn't know all the stuff that I know now. And what I came to realize was it was a near-death experience. I had left my body, and I saw the angel jump up onto that sidebar and pound. It was super easy for me to see the angel because I was out of body. I was in pure spirit. And as soon as the truck stopped, I must have gone back in. It was like, when I think back on this was eons ago, and it's just so surreal. But it shows us how we are these multidimensional beings having a spiritual experience. So it's just super, super, super important. If you can't control your emotions, or you can't control yourself in any moment in time, call in your angels and ask them to help you. It's real important. And calling Archangel Uriel, who's actually overseeing all of our emotions. He's kind of like the psychology archangel. So little tidbit on the angelic realm there. But another thing, we've been talking about public speaking. And Ken, you brought up eulogies. Like you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. And here's what I'll say about public speaking. If you are talking about something that you are so passionate about, guys, the fear goes away. Because if it's something that is just like your heart is so poured into the topic, for me, when I'm talking about angels, when I'm talking about epigenetics, when I'm talking about things that are going to really help people on a deep, profound level, the fear goes out the window, because I'm less concerned about how this all appears and way more concerned about impacting someone in such a positive way. So I don't think about the rest of it. But I will say that when my dad passed away, and I asked a friend of mine who was a new age, for lack of a better term, minister, to do the service, he asked me to write the eulogy. And I said, or he asked me to give the eulogy. And I said, I will do it, provided I have time to write it. Because even though, yeah, I was passionate about my dad, and yes, I would have wanted everyone to have positive vibes around him. But when you're under that level of emotional duress, then that's why you would rather be, in the coffin than actually giving the eulogy, because you don't have the same capacity, the same bandwidth that you have on a given day. So when we all got to the church and he asked me if I'd written it, I said no. And he said, well, actually, you can do it anyway. And I knew in that instant that he was going to call me out. Even though I was the oldest daughter, I was the one sitting closest to the casket. I was the one people should have been being nice and kind to. I knew he was going to call me out because I knew he knew I could do it. And I knew I could do it, but I knew I couldn't do it very well that day. So I went downstairs into the lower level of the funeral home, into the bathroom, and screamed at my angels and said, if you don't flip and show up, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I need you to show up, work through me, and let this be okay. Because I was just trembling with grief. So as I expected, he called me out, asked if anyone wanted to speak. No, nobody said anything. And he looked right at me and said, Lori, how about you? So I went up there And I literally let spirit work right through me. I just opened my crown chakra and I gave a 10-minute eulogy. And when I got done, my friends that were sitting in the back of the chapel came up to me afterwards and said, "You could have gotten paid 10 grand for that. Do you even know what you said?" And I said, "Well, it really wasn't me." But, I mean, moral of the story, if you're in a situation like that, call on your angels, call in divine assistance, call in help. We are multidimensional beings living in this amazing universe. We're spiritual beings having a human experience surrounded by all this divine assistance. Guys, use it. Call it in.
I love that. I love that partnership you talk about. We are divine beings, having this human experience. But how many actually feel that all the time? Like how many actually feel it all the time, especially say in some of those times? Lori mentioned something about energy and capacity, right? And how many of you are just sometimes just beat, just tired, and it seems like the whole world has been on your back all day, right, or all week? This is real. This is real because there is a very specific field of energy around us. And if I was to try to go keep with this flowchart idea and paint a picture for you, every circadian rhythm, it doesn't matter where you are, what time zone you're in, you have a circadian rhythm, right? You wake up, there's a flow of light from the sun for a period of time. And that flow of light, that movement of us, I should say, that the sun doesn't move, of this earth, we move around this influence. And that should give you a clue right there that the influence is consistent and always. What moves and that's dynamic is you and me, right? And so as we move through this energy field, this field of light, and maybe you guys have heard too, angels, was just Lori's talking about angels, is within this field of light, right? There's a light field. They can't come down to you. She said this, you heard this. You've got to ask for it. They're not going to come down to your solid form because they are energy. They are a divine light. If they came down to this level, they would not be the angel. They would be a solid form, right? We are a body in three-dimensional space and time. That's what we're orbiting this life in, this body. Now, I was going to ask you a question about, I want you to think about this while we're here for a minute. I'm going to keep going, but I want you to think about this. I want you to think about, who is I? In other words, who are you? Who are you? Are you, I don't know, there's some examples. Are you what you see in the mirror? Are you those thoughts in your head? Are you, defined by your birth certificate? What? Are you a scholar? Are you, a mother, a father, whatever? Just in your mind, just start thinking about that. But back to the energy concept. We have a circadian rhythm, and within that circadian rhythm, we have a finite amount of energy, and then you must rest, right? Right? I mean, we have to rest. And some people say, well, I got to have X number of hours of sleep. I have to have this much this and this much that. There's some realism to that, but then there's also more than that we can do to energize our bodies. More so, I should say it this way: there's more that we can do to stop the discharge of our bodies. That's more important. That's where I want to go, because the circadian rhythm, you get, let's just say you get a container of energy. Here's your container, Lori, here you go, and you wake up at, let's say you wake up at 5 in the morning and you go to sleep at 10 p.m. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's 11 and 4. I'm just saying, here's your container of energy that you get during that waking state. All right. Now, in what's going to come out of that container is everything necessary to keep your body moving and alive. Now, what's it take to keep your body alive? Well, you've heard me say it, 800,000 cells per second being recreated, 800,000 cells per second being recreated, 400 billion bits of information per second within the reticular activating system, okay? 30 feet of intestinal tubing that processes everything you ingest, right? Hundreds of miles of veins and blood moving around in your body, neurological processes that can feed enough power to keep Las Vegas going. So all of that in one circadian rhythm. Now, the number one most intense drain on your battery, on that container of energy, the number one is the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mechanism. The sympathetic nervous system is, as we were talking about intuition and instincts, that's what's kept us going and alive, right? And so it's the most vital thing. The brain itself is an organ. And then what operates that organ is the mind. Now, I asked you earlier, who are you? You know, are you what you see in the mirror? Are you this mind? Are you, you know, this definition by whatever you're saying? I'm doctor this, or I'm PhD that, or I'm mother here or mother that. I want to give you a little, I'm going to paint just a little bit of a picture here about these bodies. The body is an instrument, and it's amazing in what it does. It still has that container of energy every day, but it is an instrument. And the mind is simply a navigator. Now, we can't take your brain, pull out one brain cell, and say, oh, there's Lori's memory at 10 years old. I see it, and then read it, right? Open the memory and be able to read the book about that 10-year-old Lori. It's not there. It's not there. But however, Lori could take that brain cell and tap into that 10-year-old her and remember everything, right? Where's the mind? How come it's not in that cell? Where is the mind? So the brain in action is the mind. The brain is just a tool that the mind uses to navigate. And the interesting part about that is it has a very unique connection to one brain. One brain. The mind is yours. It's your brain in action. Like Lori said, during that moment of out-of-body experience, there she was tapped back into the divine mind of hers, not the body. The body went into self-preservation mode. This is what happens when a trauma happens. Right? Body goes into self-preservation mode, and then it starts writing to the subconscious, right? And the mind goes out, views out, and can see all kinds of stuff. Why? Because it has entered a higher level of existence. That's where spirit is. That's where the quantum field is. That's where the divine agencies are, right? This is how, and we can't get there as a body. Sorry. We don't go there as a body, right? This is why when you go to sleep, you have these dreams, you have these vivid experiences. All that stuff happens without the body. Okay. The body keeps us anchored into three-dimensional space and time, keeps us anchored here. It's the navigational tool. The brain in action is this mind. So we as a mind start to utilize this body in very specific ways. And as Lori mentioned, in that traumatic experience, she left the body. That was a way that she was able to preserve her consciousness, right? And the body was having all kinds of trauma, whether it be pain, suffering, whatever's going on. And then when she re-entered, she merged the two, this awareness of what she saw and the experience of the trauma and the pain, the considerations that was going on in that moment. They merged. Anita Moorjani has a book called Dying to Be Me. And she does an amazing job of explaining the variance between the body and this divine connection that we have. That's those instincts combined with intuition and essentially lives within the divine field, the quantum field. So as we start to take on these concepts of trauma and we start building patchwork between the body and the mind, that's where we start to store those limitations. Okay, we start to store that content within this field. All right. And the only one that can access that trauma or that experience is you. So no one else can have it. So only you. And so only you can get rid of it, and not so much get rid of it, but just stop rehearsing it. You just simply stop rehearsing it, because remember I said that container of energy? Every day you get this container of energy. The majority of that subtraction from that container is your rehearsal of limiting structures, limiting beliefs, unconscious programs that keep you acting or consuming in the same way. It's the body just simply repeating this mental influence that the mind is giving the brain on its to-do list, right? The brain is going to be, it is the most efficient part of your entire body. It's only 3% of your whole body mass, but it consumes up to 20% of your overall energy, right? It has to be okay. It has to be right, first of all. That's just part of how it keeps your body alive. And so in order for it to be right, it must know all of the things about you based on a mind's rehearsal. So in other words, you're walking down the street and you see a truck that sounds and looks just like the one that hit you a year prior. The brain takes in content from the senses. It sees it, it hears it, maybe it smells it. And then the body remembers all of this information, and the mind says, okay, brain, high alert. And the body goes into action. The body just goes right into action, just says, okay, I'm in. You don't have to tell it how to be scared. You don't have to tell it how to remember the pain from that accident. You don't have to tell it any of that. It's already built into the tissues, but it requires the mind interpreting the sensory content, right? So the body sees it, interprets it through the mind, and then the mind assigns meaning to it so the body can have the experience. Change the mind, change the body. Change the mind, you change the body. Now, how do you do that when it's such a traumatic thing? And because it seems like it's so instinctive, right? I didn't run and hide when I saw that truck. It wasn't me. The body just took off, right? Well, there was a moment. We call that in neuroscience, we call it a choice point. A moment in which the senses took in content and a meaning was assigned to it. A meaning was assigned to it. And the way that we assign meaning is probably the way is influenced by how we've said who we are to ourselves. I ask you guys to define who you are. So if we define ourselves by our body, we assign meaning to everything based on based on some physical perception. You know, somebody says, I don't like your outfit. Oh, crap, I'm worthless. Right? Oh, no, I'm horrible. Oh, I'm out of here. Don't look at me. Right? The physical. If we say that we are our mind, it's this mind, then we're defined by our thoughts. And we have a bad thought. It's like, oh, that must be true. You know, they said I dress crappy. It must be true. I'm a bad person. So the mind is another piece. Now, we say that we are our spirit. Okay. That spirit operates at a higher frequency plane. It can't walk around on this earth. It requires this body. It's in here. It's part of us. But if we are just in meditation all the time, are we contributing? Let's just sit in Zen moment, eyes closed, deep meditation, full on joy. Awesome. Eventually you're going to have to eat. Don't forget about having to use the restroom. And are you contributing to your life and to this organism as a species? No. So you can't do that either. So
No.
there's, right?
Right, you can't do that, but it's important, and we highly encourage you guys to start your day with an intentional meditation.
100%. 100%. And
And
that's,
some
go ahead.
there's some really interesting studies that have just are about to debut, aren't there, Ken?
Yes. So as we are, uh, the spiritual side of us is extremely powerful. It's connected to the divine. It is the quantum entanglement. It is consciousness as a whole, as a species, and consciousness as a universal. But remember, I said the mind uses this brain to bring that consciousness down to just our individual perceptions. There is studies. There is content now and scientific proof that the meditative state can reorganize matter to the tune of taking disorder and disease and completely evaporating it. Reimplanting things that have been removed. There's story after story of this one particular story of a woman who had her thyroid removed, and through a very distinct meditative practice, wound up growing it back. Now, I know, really, come on, Ken. I don't know if that ever be possible. The interesting thing about that, it was medically documented. Medically documented. So it's on the radar. I mean, you can't unexperience that. And what's coming, I'm super excited at the end of the month. I'll be down in San Diego for the premiere of Source, which is a Dr. Joe documentary. It's taken several years to put together, but it is all about the science of how we create a new us. And I've been blessed to be part of multiple studies that's in this documentary. There's thousands of volunteers that have been a part of this. The debut is the 27th of this month in San Diego. It's going to be at the University of California, San Diego. Now, this is a beautiful venue, by the way. It's an outdoor kind of theater setting. It is the first time that venue has ever been sold out. Right? Now, what's that say about this work? What's that say about this work? What's that say about what's this say about what's possible, right? So it's the first time it's ever been sold out. There is a grassy area that's available. That's all that's available right now, which I know will just pack out. There will be the science research team will be there. Of course, Dr. Joe will be there. Simultaneously going on that same weekend is an advanced follow-up workshop where the students will come in and Dr. Joe will do a lot of advanced training, including additional studies and what's going to happen over the next year or so. I know so far we don't know. Nobody knows where this documentary is going to air or how you're going to be able to get your hand on it. YouTube does have a trailer, and we have that. Lori's got that. I would love to share that with all you guys tonight. It's just a minute and some change. How'd you guys like to see that? if you haven't already. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Lori?
We got it right here.
The majority of people function in a state of stress, in a state of survival.
We use Western medicine and it does a bunch of things for us, but something's missing.
My name is Joe Dispenza. I run an organization called Encephalon. We teach people the neuroscience and the biology of how to change, how to transform.
How would I design a study that could capture any signal that meditation has on the body?
Red flags went off. How sciencey could that be?
There was tremolo in his voice. He said, dude, we have an effect. There is an effect of meditation, and we can measure it.
For the first time in the history of meditation studies, a group of scientists have discovered something really profound that's happening inside someone's body when they apply this formula.
What we're doing is we are quantifying how powerful the mind is.
We apply the same protocols to run pharmaceutical study.
We have data to suggest and evidence to suggest that you're changing.
Their brains look like people who have been meditating for decades.
I've never seen data like this.
Whatever these individuals did was able to change the biology of a cancer cell in a dish.
By the end of that meditation, I didn't need the wheelchair at all.
He said, Charlie, there's no cancer. There was nothing, was zero, absent.
Our data suggests 75% cause and effect.
It was like having a second chance at life.
I want to be part of that community that believes in possibility, that believes we're greater than we think, more unlimited than we could ever dream. And all I offer people is my greatest understanding of the truth.
We have just scratched the surface. This is just the beginning to understanding our human potential.
Wow.
Wow. So here's the thing, you guys. If you don't have a ticket, it's sold out. You can't go.
Can I show you something that kind of messed me up?
Hang on a second.
This is a ribbon that represents 100 years. And
Technology at its finest. So it's sold out, but Ken's going. So guess where you want to be next month? Right here. Right here. On the second Monday of April. Because between that debut of that documentary and when the rest of the public can see it, we don't know how long that's going to be. Because it's so imperative that this goes on a platform that no one can shut it down. So it's not going to just go up on, there's a lot of stuff that gets put out into the world and gets shut down. So this has got to get someplace like Netflix or someplace big that the powers that be that say they're putting it out there aren't going to let anybody shut it down. So what we can do is bring you as much information as possible. I'm giving you a huge homework assignment, Ken, but it doesn't matter because I know you'll be able to do it because you're so passionate about this. And you guys, like seriously, Ken has been involved with all these studies. He has really and truly given of his time, his love, his heart, his service. How blessed are we to have someone so amazing that we can call our friend to bring us this information?
Thank you. It's been over a decade in the making with.
Oh, you rock, Ken.
Well over a decade in the making to bring something that Dr. Joe has known for so long, since his accident at his age of 25. He's now basically 60, right? And since his accident, he made a deal. I have a lot of passion for this work. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that when we apply this formula he's talking about, we apply this methodology, we apply this understanding, there's nothing we can't heal, right? And he made a deal back in his mid-20s that after his accident and similar to what Lori's talking about, hit by a truck, right? Shattered a chunk of his spine. He was laid up, spent so much time just as a surgical candidate. And he was a chiropractor. He still is a chiropractor. He said, you know, I know that the powers that make the body can heal the body. And so he made a deal with the divine, said, you show me how to heal this and I'll teach the world. And so that's been, you know, the whole thing. And I remember when I first started with Dr. Joe, the audience, there was maybe 200, 300 of us in some of his events, right? Now there's 2,000 or more, right? And it's the formula has just been refined more and more. And it's been, I mean, I can't unexperience the things that I've been through with that group. The changes and the shifts that's happened to me, the abilities that I now know are within this body. It's like, okay, you know, it's a gift that's right here in my hand and that I've been given. But the hard part, what brings tears, is that I can't give it to anyone. You have to experience it yourself. I would give it to all of you, right? And this is why this documentary is so important.
100%. It really is. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Joe was actually out riding a bike in a race, and he got hit and he injured his spine so severely that he was paralyzed. And the surgery that was recommended only stood a 50% chance of being effective. And that's when he prayed and he asked God. And so I believe he laid for 6 weeks, was it?
Yeah, so the injury took out a large section of his thoracic spine, and they wanted to do a fusion. It's called the Harrington rod fusion. It's a large section, a big rod they install in there, and you lose the mobility of your thoracic spine, which is the center part of your back. And he's a martial artist, as I am, and he's very active. He was on the biking part of a triathlon, so that tells you something. He was hit in the backside, rear-ended by a Chevy Blazer, a big full-size four-wheel drive, drug underneath it, grasping to the bumper to survive. And he said, against all of his colleagues' recommendation, he said, no, I'm not doing it. So they strapped him to a bed, and he said, I will heal this body. And so it's an amazing story. It's a great story. And he spent hours in rehearsal, meditation, building vertebrae after vertebrae after vertebrae. And he's a chiropractor, so he knew all the visuals. He could do that. And every time he got distracted by, oh my God, should I sell my practice? Or I need to, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to sell my house. You know, I'm going to be paralyzed forever. Every time he got distracted, he started all over. And what took him hours and hours and hours to get through at first, he was finally able to get through in minutes. And within 6 weeks, he was walking again. Within 12 weeks, he was back into his practice. He was working out again. So crushing a spine like that and just going 6 weeks back, and they was told he'll never walk again. Now, since then, I have watched people stand up out of their wheelchair after a coherence healing. Now, the whole point of Dr. Joe's training, I've been to over probably 20 live events with Dr. Joe. Every single part of the training is gearing you up for one thing, and that is to heal another. That's it, to heal another. This is why I'm so passionate, because you learn the process of bringing energy from the quantum field, right? Amplifying this vessel, this body, right? It is an antenna. What'd I say? It's an antenna, and it can collect energy from the field. But sadly, what happens is we spend our time worrying about stuff that isn't existing, making shit up in our mind, in our imagination for worst case scenario, and consuming energy, and we're never going to reach the divine. You can't do it on stress response. It doesn't work. As Lori said, the angels don't come down when you are just gossiping and having a traumatic, a tantrum. No, you've got to want to heal. You've got to want to channel that information, and you want to give it away. Because I promise you, the moment you're able to channel that energy through you into another human, the pathway that heals another heals you every single time. So I've been in many of those coherent healings, and I've watched our person walk. Now, I have a question for you. Guess what? The people on the outside of the circle that are transmitting the energy from the divine, collecting a coherent signal, amplifying the healing power, are sending it to one human being in the center of the circle. You know what that human being is called? Healy. I kid you not.
Healy?
No, it's the heal, Healee. Healy.
Oh, okay.
Now, I have been doing this work for a long time, and when Healy was introduced to me, I had a meditation in 2018. This entire technology came to me. And when this technology was introduced to me in 2019, the guy says, oh yeah, it's this technology. It does this, it does that, it does the other. I said, really, what's it called? He goes, Healy. And I exploded. I'm like, I'm in. I've been working with Healy's for a long time, right? Now we have a device that can take that quantum energy field, amplify it in you, right? All app driven, right? That's the formula. So what if we did both? What if we did both? So I'm just saying, here's how we change the world in a whole nother way. Share that trailer. It's on YouTube, by the way. I'm sure Lori's got the link. You can send it out to everyone, and share it. We need to get this word out. We need to build the power in the people so that when they do launch it, it's not going to get launched for, it may take a few more months still. Only because, again, as Lori mentioned, the platform it's going to be on needs to be bulletproof, right? Because this is going to disrupt a lot of things. So in a good way, when we give the people the power back, man, I've been just sitting here blowing up inside waiting for this. So I'm glad you guys are here. I know we've been on here for a while. If you want to save the chat, click on the three little dots next to the face icon in your chat, and it'll give you an option to save the chat. Lori put the link in there. So definitely keep that. There will be another viewing of this premiere. I'll let you guys know when that's coming. So this one's sold out. I don't know where the other one is, probably close to it, but I don't have all the details on it yet. So I'll keep you posted. If you guys are following me on Facebook, you'll see all the pictures. Everything that I learned, I use for me first, and I give it away to everybody else second. That's how we should live our lives.
How do we follow you?
Guys, thank you so much. I'm so grateful I finally made it. I've been wanting to join you for forever, and I'm just sitting here. I'm really overcome, and it's a reminder of the benevolence of the universe, that this is available. You know, that we live in a field where there is this information as well as generosity of spirit. So I thank you for what you shared tonight. It's percolating.
Thank you for being here.
And
how do we follow you, Ken? How do we follow you?
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. It's Kenneth Close, KENNETH Close on Facebook. Instagram is kenneth.close. Yeah, those are I'm on those. Those two are the ones that I usually post everything. So my Facebook, my social media has nothing to do with gossip, has nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with religion. All of my social media is all about healing. It's all about learning. It's all about education. It's all about, I guarantee you, it will look like my life, which it is, because my life mimics who I am and how we need to be in cooperation to heal each other. So, yeah, so I don't, if you guys, you know, it's politics, religion, all that kind of stuff is nothing wrong with it. That's just not me.
Not me either. And that's why we get along so well. And that's why we're your epigenetic geeks, because that's our passion. That's what we love. And this is just a little reminder. You know, the whole idea with Joe Dispenza's work is not just meditating, but intentional meditation, right? And that's why we always say when you're running a program, before you hit analysis, hold that intention, know what it is, and hold that intention in your heart of what it is you really want to accomplish. That makes it so much easier for the Healy to go in and scan again between where you are down here and where you want to be up here. And there was an example that was used eons ago about a gentleman who had knee pain, who wanted to overcome his knee pain. And the key isn't just to sit there and hold in your heart that you're pain-free. The key is, why do you want to be pain-free? And the practitioner asked this gentleman several times and took it deeper and deeper and deeper. And ultimately, the ultimate reason he wanted to be pain-free was that there was an anniversary coming up with his wife, and he wanted to be able to take her out dancing. So that was the image that the practitioner asked him to hold in his heart, was that he was actually out dancing with his wife, not just that he was pain-free.
Yeah.
So really get intentional about what it is and how you want to feel when you have achieved your intention.
Almost every single one of the healings within the community, the person that stands up and talks about their experience, the number one thing that they always attach to, the first thing they say is, you know, I was just in too much joy to know I was diseased. I had too much love poured upon me to feel limited. It wasn't about getting over the disease. It wasn't about getting pain-free. It was about who they were on the other side. And that's the key. Who are you? I asked you this question earlier. Are you what you see in the mirror? Are you your mind? Are you, who are you on the other side of any limit? See yourself, be yourself, and experience yourself there. And the three-dimensional body, by the way, the 3D body is the past, right? It's already happened. You're creating a future. And when you build a memory of your future so strong, the body will catch up to it. That's the formula. But it has to be diligent. It has to be intensive, very intentional, like Lori said, and it must have a feeling, an authentic belief in that potential. Not just maybe, not just, well, I might. No. Surrender the old self in full preparation of the new self. You can't hold on to the old. I'm sorry. There's no this and that. There is either this or that.
So let go.
Thank you all. I love you guys. I'm so glad you were here. And the passion and the emotion you're going to feel inside of me is because I understand what's possible for you. I know. I already know. So definitely let's share this. I'll bring all I can back so you can enjoy whatever I learn.
100%. And can I just say, Ken, how grateful I am, how absolutely grateful I am that I get to do this amazing work with you. I love you so much. And we love all of you. And that's why we continue to bring you Monday Night Magic and tell the world is what we're about to present on the 8th of April is going to be stuff that most people haven't seen, won't have an opportunity to be aware of. So let's pack the house that night.
Woo!
Can you tell us again how you save the chat?
So down there where you type in your chat information, if you're on your computer,
yes,
or your laptop, down there where you type in your chat, there's a little smiley face. Next to the smiley face, there's 3 little dots.
Yes.
If you tap on those 3 little dots, it's going to give you an opportunity to save chat.
And where do you save it to?
Just click on save chat when you're done with the call. When we're done with the call, up on your computer will come up a dialog box that says save chat, and it'll be able to save it on your computer. And you decide where it goes.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And it was just so profoundly touching to hear you talk about this topic. It deeply moved me, and thank you so much. You too, Lori. It's just so heartwarming and breathtaking to hear the love that you feel, and you are so generous in sharing. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I'm so honored. Thank you very much.
We love you.
Big loves, everybody.
That is a ditto too. These guys rock to the cosmos.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. See you all in April. Until then, mwah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Wow.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.